and may the heavens rescue this land. We need a man with vision to lead. John Mahama is the man for us. Oh, Ghana needs a change.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please give yourselves a round of applause. It's a Friday night. We know a lot of us would have had other things to do tonight, but we have taken time off our busy schedules to be here to have this all-important conversation. A very good evening to you all, and thank you all for coming. My name is Ewura Adams Karim, and I'll be steering the affairs of this particular forum this evening as the Master of Ceremonies. And before I go ahead to do an official welcome, I just want to tell a brief story. Now, I grew up in Tamale, and growing up as children, one of the things we were taught in the integrated science class was that energy is the ability to do work. And so, growing up, it's an answer you typically just give to an exam question so you can pass and move on. But now it's made more sense that without energy, there's nothing we can literally do as human beings. This room would be dark, the cars we drove in would not move, our hospitals would collapse. Absolutely nothing would work in a society without energy. And so I just want to say a very big thank you to all of you on behalf of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, running mate Professor Jane Nano Pokwajiman, the executives of the National Democratic Parliament that are here present, and to all of you gallant men and women to ensure that our energy sector is robust and running. I welcome this evening to the Alisa Hotel for the Energy Sector Forum, where we're going to delve into important issues regarding our energy sector. I'm sure we'd all attest to the fact that before His Excellency John Dramani Mahama handed over in the year 2017, the National Democratic Congress, under his able leadership, made huge investments in the energy sector. And I'm just going to mention a few. For instance, we fixed the legacy power crisis by increasing power generation by 240% from 1,810 megawatts to 4,292 megawatts. Some people took pastors to go and pray at Akosombo. The NDC under John Dramani Mahama worked to fix the crisis. We ensured adequate, and you can clap, please. Thank you. Under His Excellency John Dramani Mahama's able leadership, we ensured adequate and reliable fuel supply for power generation by establishing the $1 billion Atuabo gas processing plant and the Ghana Gas Company. We developed a modernized and expanded distribution and transmission infrastructure, giving Ghana the strongest and best connected grid system in the sub-region. We also increased oil production through significant upstream exploration and development investments, leading to 3 producing oil and gas fields. And that's not just all. We also, in our bid to ensure value addition and product access, revamped and modernized BOST, GOIL, and TOR. Before coming in this evening, a friend of mine who works at TOR says that, Your Excellency, I should tell you to please come and rescue them. They are suffering. And so it's unfortunate that after all of these investments made by the NDC under John Dramani Mahama, little or no investment has been made by the current administration. And so it's important that we come together, sit down, deliberate, and make hard decisions to ensure that we safeguard the energy sector of our country. Tonight's conversation is not just about you and I. It's not just about the children we are going to give birth to tomorrow, but it's about those that are going to come after them. And so it's important that we sit here and have this conversation. And so thank you all so much for coming, and give yourselves a round of applause once again. It promises to be a very brief event, and as I mentioned earlier, my name is Ewura Adams Karim. Ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, I would like to introduce this man I'm about to introduce. Was at the forefront of His Excellency's efforts of revamping our energy sector during his time as president to deliver a presentation on Ghana's energy sector challenges. He is a ranking member of Ghana's Parliament's Energy Committee, and he is a minority spokesperson on energy. Ladies and gentlemen, please, with a round of applause, join me welcome the Member of Parliament for Yape Koso constituency, Honorable John Abdullahi Jinapo.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let me thank all of you for honoring this invitation. As you may be aware, a lot of you industry players, stakeholders, invited His Excellency to have series of sessions with you. We met the upstream chamber, we met the IPPs, we met the BDCs, we met the OMCs, we met virtually every stakeholder in the energy sector. His Excellency listened to you and we interacted. And so today, we've reciprocated by inviting you to also have a session with you, because we can only do this job in partnership with you. We can only collaborate with you. But Your Excellency, with your permission, let me express my appreciation to my team members, that's the party's energy committee, who've been working tirelessly to work on, one, the manifesto document, but two, also the policy implementation document, because His Excellency is tasked us to do two things: the manifesto document itself, but beyond the manifesto is the policy implementation document. He's indicated that as soon as he assumes office on the 7th of January, he wants us to hit the ground running. And so we've been working on the policies and doing all the necessary analysis, simulations, sensitivity analysis, and all the scenarios. My duty is to present to you the state of Ghana's energy sector, and His Excellency President Mahama would present to us his vision as President of the Republic of Ghana from 2025. And so, with your permission, I will start right ahead. As you may see on the board, we're talking of the state of Ghana's energy sector. We have the petroleum sector and we have the power sector. In other areas, we are talking of conventional and non-conventional, renewable and non-renewable. But in our current circumstance, we have the petroleum, which is the upstream sector, where you explore, you appraise, and then you produce. And then the downstream sector, where you transport that raw oil, process it into finished products for consumption. And then in the power sector, we have the generation, where you generate the power, you have to transmit or transport it through the national interconnectivity system, and then the distribution sector. Indeed, Ghana's first public electricity supply, as some of you may know, started in 1914 at Sekondi. When it comes to petroleum, the most significant one has to do with the Sulphur field in 1978. But the major power plant that we had is the Akosomo Dam that President Kwame Nkrumah himself started and became fully operational in 1967. Following that, we have the Pong hydroelectric power. And so at that time, we had enough energy and everybody thought that we're okay. Lo and behold, in 1984, Ghana had this first power outage, or what you call Dumso. Because in 1983-84, there was a serious drought. We thought it was just a flash in the pan. But in 1998-2000, there was another power outage. 2006-2007, there was another crisis. 2011 to 2013, thereabout, we had crisis again. And in all this, it showed that we could not solely depend on hydropower. So as demand increased, climate change and its variability, it meant that you couldn't depend solely on hydropower. And so when people say you have enough installed capacity, and yet you're having load shedding or power crisis, they simply do not understand that system. It is warped logic to just say that because you have enough installed capacity, you necessarily can translate that into power. Because in 2007, we have installed capacity of 1,985. That's almost 2,000 megawatts. Our peak demand was just 1,300 megawatts. So it meant that you had about 700 megawatts of excess capacity. And yet in 2007, We had 1 year of load shedding. Fast forward, in 2013, our installed capacity was about 2,300. But because of the hydrology, the Akosomo Dam could generate only about a third of the power. And so it meant that you had a deficit in terms of generation. That called for diversification. That called for the complementation of other sources of energy, because you couldn't depend on hydro alone. And so I recall President Mahama taking a bold decision. He did not blame his predecessors. He was not whining. He was not complaining. He took responsibility and told the whole nation that as President of the Republic of Ghana, his duty is to fix the problem, and he promised that he would do what? He would fix it. And so what did we do as a government? And it's very important that we put some of these things in perspective, so we have an understanding of exactly what we did as a government to address this challenge. The first issue you needed to deal with was the generation itself, because we had aging and obsolete equipment. The hydro dam, like I said, was turning to be unreliable. Nigerian gas was very erratic, and it wasn't that reliable. We had serious fuel challenges, because as demand increased, you could not keep buying light crude oil at that price. The transmission system was very, very weak. And I recall Dr. Otinyeje working tirelessly to deal with the transmission system. And the distribution losses itself was rising. So what it meant is that when the CG sells the power, they are unable to account and pay through the value chain up to the generation, and overall financial challenges. But we took bold, decisive policy decisions to address the challenge. We wanted to develop a robust, resilient, and efficient power system, maximize our petroleum sector, because Ghana had discovered some hydrocarbon potential in 2007, but more importantly, transition the energy sector from dependence on light crude oil to a gas to power era, and improve access to reliable supply of electricity. But when we took over, the access rate was about 54%, and improve the financial well-being, technical well-being, operational efficiency, but more importantly, promote local content and participation by empowering Ghanaians and Ghanaian businesses. So in the generation sector, we had a mix of generation. We did not just concentrate on one element. And in the generation sector, you can have a single cycle, you can have a dual fuel plant, you can have a combined cycle, you can have hydro, you can have thermal complementation. And we made sure that we structured the generation system to fit into our overall objective. And so if you take a Mary, for instance, the 250 megawatt plant, but it's a modular plant. So even when you have shortage of gas, you can run just 2, you can run 3, you can move 4 away. And then we did some solar. We brought on KTPP, who use this distillate fuel. We turned the TICO plant into a combined cycle to reduce cost and make it more efficient. And then we brought the car power plant to initially use heavy fuel with the vision to transition it to use indigenous domestic gas. And so clearly, by the time President Mahama left office, he had comprehensively, holistically dealt with the generation challenge in a well thought out, well comprehensive manner. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot just generate the power. It's like when you farm, you have to transport it to the market. And so you needed to deal with the distribution or transmission system. And as you can see that from the transmission side, we did a lot of work in the transmission side. In the transmission side, we built the Pokuase bulk supply point. We constructed a 50 million transformer at Kasua. We built another bulk supply point with JICA. We built a Boise Prestia line and enhanced the transmission line from 161 kV to 330 kV. It simply means that maybe you were loading with a Kia truck. You've now decided that you load with an articulator truck. So the transmission lines can now evacuate more power. It makes it resilient and it reduces your losses as well. We build a line all the way to Bolgatanga to export power to Burkina and then improve on Gridco's financial turnaround. And by the time we left office, Gridco had been turned around and Gridco was making profit. And so in 2016, Gridco posted profit of $70 million. Not only did we deal with the transmission system, we started and improved exports of power to several countries. We enhanced improvements and transported power to Cote d'Ivoire, to Burkina, to Mali, to Benin, and positioned Ghana as a reliable hub for the export of power into the West African sub-region. But we did so because that map there shows you the West African power pool. All the 14 countries are interconnected now. The red lines you see is the 330 kVA. The blue lines is the 225 kVA. So what it means is that right from Nigeria to Senegal, now you can export power. And so when we say we're positioning Ghana to export power, and our predecessors say, well, how do you export the power? Who is going to consume the power? There's enough market currently. Burkina wants power, Benin wants power, Togo wants power, almost all our neighboring countries, even Nigeria, they want reliable supply of power. So if anybody tells you that we don't have that market and that we don't have the opportunity to export power, tell him that is not true. There is ready market, and if you check the WAP, which is the West African Power Pool website, you will see that there exists that opportunity. But more importantly, in the energy sector, you have to deal with the distribution sector. The distribution sector can be the Achilles heel of the energy sector. It's the distribution sector that deals or interfaces with the final consumer. The distributor collects the money, puts it in the pot, and pay at the back end. So ECG's losses when we took over was about 30%. We reduced it to 22%. But we said we are not satisfied. We needed to reduce it further to 8%, which is best practices in the industry. And so President Mahama fought very hard day and night. And I recall Honorable Setekwe leading us to secure $500 million from the United States government through the Millennium Challenge Corporation. And he dedicated all that money to deal with the distribution sector as far as the energy sector was concerned. And that was a major milestone. And today I see President Akufo-Addo commission some of the bulk supply points without giving credit to President Mahama and claiming credit and ownership for some of those projects. Not only did we do that, we also introduced the Energy Sector Levies Act to deal with the financial challenges and increase access to electricity from 54% to 84%. In 8 years, we increased energy access by 30 percentage points. And when you do this, it shows. Because when you look at ECG's financials in 2016, they also made a profit of 362 million. So ECG is making profit, Gridco is making profit, VRA is exporting power, and the whole value chain, you could see significant improvement in the sector. And by the time we were handing over, we had done a lot in the energy sector. But we needed to link the power sector with the petroleum sector. And through hard work, we brought on board 3 producing oil fields and 3 FPSOs. FPSO Kwame Nkrumah, FPSO Atta Mills, and then we had the 3rd FPSO on board. 3 FPSOs and 3 oil fields. But in the oil sector, it's not just enough to produce oil. The critical element is the value addition. What do you derive from the hydrocarbons. Under President Mahama and under President Mills and Vice President Mahama, we started the $1 billion project to construct the Atuabo gas processing plant so that we can make use of our indigenous gas. And then President Mahama continued with another gas processing plant. Because it is offshore, most people think that the only gas processing plant is the Atuabo gas processing plant. The OCTP field has an integrated gas processing plant, and today the OCTP field alone produces about 60% of our gas needs as far as gas consumption is concerned. You also need regulation, because when you find oil, it leads to a certain boom, it leads to a certain economic development, but you must regulate. And so the NDC passed the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. And for me, that is one of the best acts we can ever have. Act 815, where we say that net of the revenues after dealing with category A or our carried interest, 70% of that revenue should go into critical infrastructure projects. The 30% that is left, put another 70% in a stabilization fund, so that tomorrow when you have a problem, unforeseen circumstances, you can fall on that stabilization fund. The remaining 30, put it in a heritage fund. Let it grow for 15 years, so that future generation can benefit from that sovereign fund. And I recall that President Mahama led us to learn from the Norwegian experience, from the UK experience, from Nigeria's experience, from Trinidad and Tobago, so that we know good ones, the challenging ones, and that helped us to pass the PRMA. And guess what? In 2020, when COVID struck and we were caught, it became difficult. President Akufo-Addo had to go to the stabilization fund that President Mahama had accumulated and built, and took $200 million, equivalent of 1.2 billion cedis, to buy Veronica buckets, face masks, pay nurses, raw food stuff, some of which even landed in the Kasua market. And so the question is, if the NDC did not have that vision, did not think that far, and saved some money in the stabilization fund, when COVID struck, would have had it very, very difficult. And for me, I think that the leadership then deserves a round of applause for their forward thinking, for their foresight, and for what they envisage for the sector. We also restored TOR. And not only did we restore the Tamawa refinery, we procured 2 million barrels from the 10 field, handed it to TOR, so that TOR will blend it with other crude and add value. When we left office, the remainder of the 2 million was declared as off-spec and sold under very dubious and questionable circumstances. Even the energy sector levy that our colleagues on the other side attacked us for, when President Mahama was leaving office, he left in that account 234 million cedis and bequeathed that to President Akufo-Addo. So if you look on the screen, you will see the various FPSOs. I just thought that we should show you the 3 FPSOs that we got and delivered before we left. And those are the FPSOs that we handed over to the Akufo-Addo government. The next one is the Atuabo gas processing plant. And those of you who've been to Atuabo, you would see the gas processing plant. Then you would see the Tama oil refinery, the state of it when we were living, and when we handed 2 million barrels. And so as a result of some of these interventions, if you read the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, their document, and this is official, in 2022, we consumed 107 BCF of gas. If you convert that to light crude, it amounts to 20 million barrels of light crude. because we did not consume light crude and we consumed gas. When you do what you call the import substitution savings, in 2022 alone, Ghana saved $1.34 billion because we transitioned from crude oil to domestic gas. And so, but for these two plans that President Mills and President Mahama delivered, would have had to cough $1.34 billion to procure crude oil. So far, we've gotten about $10 billion from our crude revenues or oil revenues, in terms of surface rental, carried and participating, taxes and all that. And then we handed over a very resilient, robust, strong power sector. And let me put this on record. When we were leaving office, there was no load shedding. And that is a fact. Facts are facts. Facts are not opinion. You can have your opinion, but the truth is that when we were handing over, we had a stable power supply, we had enough oil reserves, and the system was resilient and strong. And if you want the best witness, you can Google Mahama deserves no credit for fixing Dumsor, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, the current candidate of the MPP. He is the source document. And so if you go forward, you would see the gas volumes. Those are the pictorial evidence that will be made available. But under 8 years of NDC and 8 years of MPP government, sometimes it's important to put some of these things within the right context. The energy sector levies that probably costed President Mahama a lot, we received 3.2 billion. Despite promising to scrap it, when President Akufo-Addo assumed office, they've increased it so far by 30%. And guess how much they've received so far by the end of the year? They are receiving 45 billion cedis from the energy sector levies. We received 3 billion. Petroleum revenues, we received 3.4 billion. They are receiving 7.4 billion. Eurobond, we got just 3.7 billion. Eurobond, they floated 11.45 billion. And out of that, they promised that they will use 1 billion to refinance energy sector investments. That money was diverted and spent on other non-energy related activities. And clearly, those are some of the things that is contributed to the current situation where the Tema oil refinery has been down for 4 years. Our oil production, which peaked at 190,000 barrels from 2019, has declined by 30%. Indeed, Ghana's oil sector is on the verge of collapse. If nothing is done, at the rate at which our oil is declining, very soon we're going to have a major problem. ExxonMobil has exited Ghana. A lot of the oil majors, Anadacom, they've exited Ghana. ENI is in court with Ghana. The level of opacity, the level of clandestine activity, and the level of questionable contracts that has characterized the oil sector leaves much to be desired. Just our nearby country, Cote d'Ivoire, is overtaking Ghana. Almost all the oil service companies are now relocating to Cote d'Ivoire because the sector is not transparent. There's too much state capture in the oil sector. The losses that were reduced to 22% has now increased to over 30%. The 500 million we got for the Millennium Challenge Corporation to invest in ECG under the PDA scandal, as a result of some few family and friends who wanted to profit on our sweat, the United States government withdrew 190 million, cancelled that compact, and today other countries are benefiting from compact trade, and Ghana has been blacklisted. Our exports has reduced drastically. Indeed, ECG, their latest financials, From a profit of 300 million in 2016, they made a loss of 10 billion Ghana cedi. That is the state of Ghana's energy sector. Unnecessary and avoidable judgment debt. Judgment debt that is unnecessary. Huge sums of money. Government has refused to pay that money. And so clearly, President Mahama will be inheriting a very, very rundown, a very, very weak energy sector that is on the verge of collapse, that is choking from debt. An oil sector where all the industry players and the majors are exiting Ghana. We must necessarily restore and reset this country. We cannot continue on this trajectory. We cannot continue on this path. This is not what we envisaged. This is not the foundation we laid for this country. We laid a solid foundation when Ken Oforiatta went for the Eurobond in 2019. He promised them that we would increase our oil production to 400,000 barrels. As a result of that, he took 3 billion. The oil has declined by 30% to about 138,000. And so clearly you will default because you did not keep pace with the situation. We have done some work as an energy team, and based on our conservative estimates, we envisage that President Mahama, you would require about $2 billion to clear the pipeline when it comes to the energy sector related debts. But it is compounding. It's not as if it's stagnated. If you look at the current situation, today they are fighting on who would procure crude. They are procuring light crude. They told us that we have so much gas that they didn't know what to do with the gas. 8 years down the lane, they are now procuring crude $40 million every month. That translates to $480 million a year. That money can build a second gas processing plant. We cannot continue on this trajectory, and certainly we cannot leave this in the hands of the people who cause the mess. There's an attempt to shield the vice president. The PDS scandal, he watered down the bank guarantee to an insurance guarantee and changed the requirement of a condition precedent to a condition subsequent. A condition precedent means that meet certain conditions before we hand over ECG to you. He unilaterally decided that they should take the assets and go and look for the guarantee, and then turn around and came and told us that they brought him a fraudulent guarantee. Today they are in court. And knowing this government and knowing their track record, I just pray that we don't have another Ameri, another PDS, and all those scandals following what has happened in terms of where we are. They told us that, look, we don't need take-or-pay agreements. And they bastardized President Mahama for take-or-pay agreements. The AXA plant, which is 360 megawatts, the contract was signed for 5 years. As soon as the contract expired in 2022, the same government that says we have so much excess capacity, they immediately renegotiated it and signed it for 15 years with take-or-pay clauses. As if that is not enough, they signed another 250 megawatts for 20 years with take-or-pay clauses. They cancelled the Sahara gas and then came with Tema LNG that also came with take-or-pay clauses. The gold for oil deal today has led to over 1 billion debt sitting on the books of Bank of Ghana. President Mahama, with the greatest of respect to you, the gold for oil deal is not sustainable. It is not. We've done all the analysis and we've done all the simulation, and we can tell you that it hasn't even met its objective. The currency has depreciated from about 10 to the cedi to the dollar Today at 16, the 50% supply they promised, they cannot meet it. Inflation is gone through the roof. Monetary policy is gone through the roof. Unemployment is in double digits. Debt to GDP went above 100%, which meant that if we were to sell the whole Ghana, including all of us, we cannot even pay our debts. That is the level of decadence. That is the level of rot. The Baumia-led economic management team is sunk Ghana. And when we go for international conferences, after you've delivered a speech or session like this, people come to you and they ask you, what is happening in Ghana? The international community, they are very concerned about our current state. And a lot of them will tell you that they cannot wait to see the back of this government. Ladies and gentlemen, fuel that you could buy a gallon for 14 cedi. Today with 14 cedi, you cannot even buy a liter of fuel. To cap it, we can only do one thing together, stakeholders. When we met you, we had a litany and a series of complaints from you. From upstream to downstream, from generation to the distribution sector, the financial state of the energy sector, even the regulatory element of the energy sector. You must join hands with us. We can only change this situation if you change this government. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful.
Thank you very much. The Member of Parliament for the Yape Koso constituency, Honorable John Abdullahi Jinapo. Please let's give him a round of applause once again. Indeed, it is no doubt that for any nation to reach the acme of development, it must have a robust energy sector driving its growth. And since His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is committed to resetting the destiny of this nation through the NDC's flagship 24-hour economy, it is important that you, the experts and key stakeholders seated in this room this evening, delve deeper into what has been done in the past, which Honorable just mentioned, where we are presently, which is also mentioned, and what we can do better going forward to ensure that we have a robust energy sector that we can be proud of as Ghanaian people. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we will now hear from someone who knows our keynote speaker very well. She's a lawyer with 20 years of experience specializing in maritime and corporate law. She served previously as Deputy Minister of Transport. She's a special aide to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and now serves as the John Dramani Mahama campaign spokesperson. She's an excellent communicator and a leader admired by all. It's my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you the beautiful Joyce Bawa Mokhtari.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you. My task this evening is very, very simple: to introduce to all of us a man who needs no introduction. He is a former Member of Parliament of our beloved Bole constituency, former Vice President, former President of the Republic of Ghana, a man who was promised to reset Agenda Ghana, a man who has told us that he is going through to visit on all the issues that all of us worry about day in, day out. He has told us that together we can build the Ghana that each one of us can be proud of. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, John Dramani Mahama is a man through whose vision we fix Dumso. He is a man who has promised to reset Agenda Ghana, reset our economy, reset the energy sector, reset our mindset, and together all of us can build the Ghana that we can be proud of. We all know that it's not going to be an easy task, but I have no doubt in my mind that this is a man who promises and delivers on his promises. He's a man who has an able, accomplished lady, Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman, to support him. This is a ticket that offers experience, it offers dexterity, it offers love for Ghana, patriotism, nationalism of a kind that all of us will be proud of. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I have the distinguished privilege and honor of inviting all of us to welcome John Dramani Mahama, who will be our keynote for this evening. I thank you for your attention. God bless us all.
And may the heavens rescue this land. We need a man with vision to lead. John Mahama is the man.
Thank you very much. My running mate and standing on the cusp of history to become the first female Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman. And let me say, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Chairman of our Manifesto Committee and Policy Formulation Group, our Energy Sector Group, and captains of the energy industry, from upstream all the way through the value chain to downstream. I want to thank you very much for agreeing to be part of this function. We launched our manifesto in Winneba a few weeks ago, and our intention is to hold stakeholder policy dialogues flowing out of the manifesto to summarize what our clear vision is for different important sectors. And so today is the turn of the energy group. And my anticipation is that the next, Professor Danso Boafo and his group will determine, but I have an inkling that it's going to be the governance and corruption and those other things, international policy, defense, security. So governance will be the next policy group that we engage. So ladies and gentlemen, my fellow countrymen and women, let me express my gratitude to you, distinguished guests, for honoring my invitation to interact with you tonight. I stand before you today not just as a leader, but as a patriot committed to restoring and revitalizing one of the most critical pillars of our nation, and that is our energy sector. It is undeniable that sufficient, reliable, and affordable energy will continue to play a critical role as the foundation upon which we build our future. Without it, our economy cannot grow, our businesses cannot thrive, and our people cannot prosper. Historically, Ghana has had its fair share of power supply challenges, with the first power crisis occurring in 1984, following a severe drought which disrupted the generating capacity of our traditional hydro dams. The subsequent crisis of early 2000 to 2007, and then also again in 2012-2013, called for the country's power mix to be diversified from over-reliance on hydro capacity. The NDC inherited a power sector that had suffered from years of underinvestment, and this was aggravated by aging thermal plants. However, we did not resort to whining and complaining and passing the buck, nor did we engage in needless propaganda. On the contrary, we took the bull by the horns and took decisive and bold steps to turn things around by increasing generation capacity to augment the existing plants. Ladies and gentlemen, we made remarkable progress in the power sector during our administration. By 2016, we had increased Ghana's power generating capacity from 1,810 megawatts to 4,292 megawatts, laying a solid foundation for a stable, reliable, and resilient energy system. This was not just about boosting numbers, but about securing a long-term energy future for every Ghanaian. Our investments ensured that the nation became self-sufficient in its energy system and provided adequate buffers against future uncertainties. In the transmission sector, we made significant investments to increase power transmission losses, to reduce power transmission losses, to increase power transmission capacity and reduce power transmission losses. My brothers and sisters, we also transformed Ghana's transmission infrastructure by upgrading our transmission lines and enhancing the bulk distribution system, which helped position Ghana as the power export hub of West Africa. In all that we did, we're aiming to make Ghana the power export hub under the West African Power Pool, which was still in formulation. In the distribution sector, strategic agreements, including the Millennium Challenge Compact, allowed us to develop critical infrastructure such as the Pokwasi and Kaswa bulk supply points, improving power reliability for millions of Ghanaians to significantly reduce system and commercial losses. To address the fuel supply challenge and the associated high cost of crude oil imports, we successfully transitioned Ghana into the gas to power era in line with our energy transition vision. My dear compatriots, regarding electricity access, we expanded national coverage from 54% to 83% during my time in office, a remarkable 30% increase over the 8 years the NDC was in power. This was a testament to our commitment to ensure that every Ghanaian, regardless of their location, had access to electricity. We aimed to close the energy gap and did it successfully, laying the foundation for a more inclusive economy. But my brothers and sisters, today this foundation is crumbling under the weight of mismanagement, corruption, and inefficiency. And it's time to take bold action once again. Rather than continuing and improving upon the foundation that had been laid and handed over, the current government resorted to an unnecessary blame game and so-called review of contracts, which ended up with numerous embarrassing scandals and judgment deaths, with close members of the president family as accomplices in the plundering of the nation's resources. Scandals like the Ameri Novation Agreement and PDS deals have caused severe financial damage to the energy sector. Once a profitable company, ECG reported losses of over 10 billion Ghana cedis in 2022. And this is in sharp contrast to the 362 million Ghana cedis profit that ECG achieved in 2016 under the NDC administration. The situation has deteriorated further, leaving Ghanaians to suffer the consequences. Ghana's power sector is on the verge of collapse, and something must be done to save it. Ladies and gentlemen, we set the stage for transformational and inclusive growth in the petroleum sector. We attracted unprecedented investments, culminating in the realization of 3 oil-producing fields, the Jubilee Field, the TEN Field, and the OCTP oil and gas fields, anchored by 3 FPSOs. We modernized critical institutions such as BOST, GOIL, and TOR. These policy initiatives paved the way for TOR to begin the processing of 2 million barrels of crude oil that was allocated to it from the nation's TEN oil field. In line with our vision to produce reliable, affordable, and clean fuel for our thermal plants, we constructed a Chuabo gas processing plant to accomplish this goal. In our second term, we secured a 7.7 billion investment for the offshore Cape 3 Points project with an integrated gas processing plant. It is refreshing to note that despite the skepticism and cynicism of our opponents, the OCTP fields currently, today, contribute about 60% of Ghana's domestic gas requirement. By transitioning from expensive imported light crude oil to domestic gas, we saved the country $1.34 billion. This significant milestone secured Ghana's energy independence and strengthened our national economy, resulting in a deficit end of 2016 of 6.1% and an overall debt to GDP of 5.6%. Unfortunately, since 2019, the petroleum sector has retrogressed rapidly. Crude oil production has dropped by over 30%, and regulatory failures such as the ENI unitization dispute have damaged our international reputation as an oil and gas nation. Corruption scandals like the sale of contaminated fuel and the lease of Tor to Terenco in opaque circumstances have further eroded investor confidence in the sector. It is sad to note that most of the major oil companies are abandoning Ghana and relocating in our neighbor Cote d'Ivoire. Despite the current government inheriting over 40 billion Ghana cedis in ESLA revenues and almost $7.4 billion from oil revenues, the energy sector is choking on debt. ECG's financial losses have ballooned and the sector is on the brink of collapse. The IPPs are owed about $2 billion, which has put the power sector in jeopardy. Natural gas supplies are in huge arrears, with several more outstanding debts crippling cash flow in the sector. Fellow citizens, we can grieve for many hours looking back on the harm this government has done to our energy sector. Although the present energy situation looks bleak, with many Ghanaians witnessing the brunt of the worst economic conditions in recent history, I want to state emphatically that all hope is not lost. At its core, the principle of governance is about solving real problems that impact our people. It demands confidence in ideas, but also the humility to take responsibility and engage with diverse groups and individuals, harnessing their insights and experience to craft and implement effective policies. And this served me very well when I worked as president of this country. I'm glad to inform you that following a series of consultations we have had with many of you, the next NDC government has developed a well-thought-out plan and a comprehensive strategy to restore and transform Ghana's energy sector. Our energy system will be the backbone of our iconic 24-hour economy, where businesses can operate around the clock, creating jobs and driving inclusive growth and energy prosperity. To achieve this vision, we shall introduce and implement key initiatives in the energy sector. For the power sector, the NDC's vision is to promote industrialization and a 24-hour economy with adequate, reliable, and affordable power supply towards achieving accelerated, inclusive economic growth. We'll comprehensively audit the technical and financial operations of energy sector SOEs with a vision to implementing reforms for the delivery of reliable and affordable services, transparent management of the ESLA revenues, and strictly adhere to the principles of the cash waterfall mechanism to support consistent electricity supply for the 24-hour economy policy. We will systematically match generation with forecasted demand and address reserve requirements. The new administration will increase clean energy consumption in line with our energy transition agenda and provide the necessary fiscal and regulatory incentives to attain a 10% share of non-hydro renewable energy in our generation mix. Other key interventions will include: 1, the implementation of a time of use tariff to provide affordable and stable electric power for businesses to operate around the clock. Another will be to transparently manage the ESLA revenues and strictly adhere to the principles of the cash waterfall mechanism. Significantly reduce technical, distribution and commercial losses in the energy sector in partnership with local entrepreneurs. To make budgetary provision for payment of power consumed by government agencies and ensure prompt releases of that revenue. Coordinate and implement energy efficiency policies and regulations to minimize the cost of power. And to implement a Light Up Ghana initiative to provide adequate and dependable street lighting for safety and productive nighttime economic activities. To restore Ghana's position as the leading and reliable power exporter in the whole of the West African sub-region. To promote the use of electric vehicles and electric outboard motors for fisher folk to reduce costs and promote sustainable development. We shall also implement a massive solar rooftop project and off-grid power system to reduce the cost of power delivery and consumption, and provide the needed incentives and support to encourage the private sector to manufacture and assemble these solar panels and accessories locally. Under our Energy for All policy, we shall aggressively implement a rural electrification program aimed at achieving universal access by 2028 and prioritizing procurement of locally manufactured goods and services such as the poles, the meters, the cables, the transformers, etc., to promote local production of these items. In the upstream petroleum sector, Ghana's oil and gas sector is in acute decline, with exploration, appraisal and development at their lowest since 2017. And this is arising from poor decision-making, opacity, and the underhand dealings resulting in waning investor confidence. Ghana's upstream sector faces imminent collapse if the current trend is not reversed urgently. We shall restore confidence and credibility in the sector by creating an enabling environment aimed at increasing investments through policy, consistency, predictability, transparency, and effective regulation. To achieve this, the next NDC administration shall, 1. Restore credibility and reform the opaque and questionable allocation of oil blocks, reverse stalled exploration activities, and accelerate petroleum production with improved incentives to attract investment in exploration activities, especially in our deep waters. 2. To restore and improve the waning momentum in upstream local content and participation to advance value creation, retention, and job creation. And then 3. To implement legislative provisions to optimize acreage size with improved incentives to attract investment in exploration activities, especially in our deep water prospects. To explore and implement cutting-edge drilling and exploration technology to identify new offshore and onshore reserves with improved data quality and accessibility. To pursue actions to accelerate exploration in all offshore basins and aggressively open up the Voltairean Basin to unlock its oil and gas potential. To offer incentives to accelerate domestic gas discoveries, intensify gas commercialization, and utilize power generation beyond industrial use and agricultural production for job creation and national development. To construct additional gas processing trains to augment the current gas delivery volumes for power and industrial use. To achieve 100% domestic supply of LPG production from our gas processing infrastructure and refineries. To review the current LPG cylinder recirculation model in consultation with all the relevant stakeholders to ensure inclusivity in the policy implementation. And I said this already, to expand gas utilization beyond power generation for industrial use and also agricultural production in order that we can create more jobs in the economy. In the downstream petroleum sector, we shall facilitate strategic private sector participation in the operation of the Tema oil refinery and ensure production is restored to the 45,000 barrels per day output in the near term, and ultimately expand the capacity to 100 billion barrels per day, 100,000 barrels per day, sorry, in the medium term. And this will be done transparently without any opacity. To conduct a forensic, financial and technical audit of TOR, to provide a platform to attract private sector investments towards revamping the refinery. You need to do a technical and financial audit of what the state of the refinery is before you can genuinely go on the market to look for strategic partners in a transparent manner. Create the enabling environment and incentivize private sector participation in oil and gas processing to augment state refinery capacity, to improve and strengthen local content and participation in the petroleum sector, to advance value creation, retention and job creation, to restructure BOST to store and transport petroleum products with expanded storage facilities and pipeline interconnections for processing and export, to ensure a transparent pre-mixed fuel distribution system for fisherfolk while pursuing the transition towards electric outboard motors, to develop a multimodal fuel transportation system to increase efficiency and reduce costs of delivering petroleum products, to construct a dedicated onshore pipeline from the west to the east for security, flexibility and reliability of gas supply, to initiate the development of additional mooring facilities to address increasing demand and supply security, allow representation of the private sector participation on the CWM committee to provide transparency and accountability. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall strictly ensure financial discipline and accountability for all energy sector SOEs and facilitate private sector participation in refinery operations and product imports, and implement a deliberate policy of value addition by processing locally produced crude oil. And by this, we would improve value addition of domestic crude oil and also expand our export potential. Establish a guaranteed and structured foreign exchange allocation policy for the downstream petroleum sector and review the opaque gold for oil scheme to ensure a sufficient and predictable supply of foreign exchange. To aggressively develop, modernize and expand the petroleum products delivery infrastructure to enhance the security of fuel supply. To initiate the development of additional mooring facilities, I said this already, to address increasing demand and supply security. To invest in infrastructure and increase the capacity of BOST to store and transport refined products, and expand crude oil storage facilities in Ghana in accordance with our petroleum hub concept. And then there are many other innovations that we want to introduce. And so we will also develop a multimodal fuel transportation system to support the 24-hour economy drive and reduce the cost of transportation. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, our energy sector was once a beacon of progress, and it can be so again. The challenges we face are significant, but they are not insurmountable. Together we can reset Ghana. Together we can rebuild Ghana's energy sector and put it back in its rightful place as the engine of our economic growth and national development. We can create a 24-hour economy, we can modernize our agriculture, and restore Ghana's West Africa energy hub vision that we had. We will ensure transparency and accountability in our energy institutions and ensure that every Ghanaian has access to affordable and reliable power. Corruption and opacity and underhand dealings in the sector will be a thing of the past. Ladies and gentlemen, stakeholders in the energy sector, under my watch, under the Mahama Nana Jane administration, the sector will cease to be a milking cow for a few relatives and cronies. Of the president and the vice president, our relatives are not going to be milking the cow. We shall not treat investors in the sector with hostility, as is presently the case, but will rather welcome them as partners and relate with them based on mutual respect, cooperation, and strict adherence to ethical standards. As I stated at a recent forum on FDI, we shall demonstrate to our management of the energy sector that Ghana is once again open for business. We shall inject innovation, technology, and modern best practices into the running of the sector. We have a clear plan which we will implement with active stakeholder involvement. We will consult you, the stakeholders, at every step of the way. The path forward is clear. With strong leadership, sound policies, and your support, we can build the Ghana we all want. A Ghana that thrives. A Ghana where energy powers not just our industries, but also powers our dreams. And so I want to thank all of you. I'll stop here and look forward to the interaction with you. And I thank you, and God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you very much.
Rescue this land. We need a man with vision to lead. John Mahama is the man for us. Oh, Ghana needs a change. Mumbai and sorry and red,
Thank you very much, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, incoming President of the Republic of Ghana. We definitely look forward to, please, a round of applause. Just like our Kwame Nkrumah, we know that when you come, you would rescue this country and indeed reset the destiny of the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now open the floor for questions. We will take 4 questions at a time. And with all due respect, we want to limit the questions to only the journalists and the key industry players. We understand that we have some politicians in our midst, but would like this to be, limited to just the industry players and the journalists who are with us. So 4 questions. You raise your hand. I'd give you the opportunity. We'll take 4 questions at a go. His Excellency would answer them. And when we have time, we'll take 4 more questions. And then His Excellency would answer them as well. And if time permits us, we'll take another batch of 4 questions. So please. Okay, so yes, the gentleman in the suit. Please introduce yourself and ask your question. I would appreciate if you're upstanding. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Dr. Suleiman. I have a couple of questions, maybe 1 or 2. I'm so pleased to notice that we've identified that our upstream is in a state of inertia, a near collapse, and that's a fact. Now, the first question I want to ask is, what are the cogent steps that we want to take? First of all, to arrest the immediate decline in our oil fields. That's number one. The second one, and at the downstream, we've talking about the gold for oil. We've all known the challenges that is confronting that particular policy. Of course, we've seen our city not performing. That was what it was set up to do. Now, I want to find out whether we have a credible alternative, to stabilizing the city. Because this gold for oil was to stabilize the city. We haven't seen that much happening. What credible alternative that do we have? Assuming we should abolish gold for oil, the next probably just if the opportunity brings itself. But the last one is a contribution, and I want to thank the massive investment that is done in the gas sector, and I want to encourage that we have to do that. In fact, that's one of the bottlenecks that is impacting oil production.
Thank you.
If you're able to unlock that, I think it will help us a lot.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Everyone, one, only you, two. Why? All right, shall we take the next question? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Mensa Thompson. I'm with ASEPA, a civil society. We are interested in the corruption in the energy sector. And in the last few days, we've been dealing with one of the major corruption scandals in the energy sector, which has to do with the GPGC scandal, and how we incurred a needless judgment debt of $170 million, and because of that, our assets are being seized outside the country. Our recommendation as civil society is that, His Excellency, we are very grateful for such as a forum, and we hope that during the investigation of some of these dubious contracts, civil society are not left out. I know a number of my colleagues here are sitting on a number of documents that can help. And one of the things I want to bring to the attention is how a businessman came to this country wanting to pay $85 million for the GPGC plant, only to be told that the president's family was interested in the plant, and so he had to repatriate the $85 million, which could have helped us pay part of the judgment debt that we have incurred. Again, there's also some corrupt scandals in the offshore sector, where some companies have been given dubious contract to do revenue assurance at the offshore, and all these things are things that we civil society take key interest in, and we hope that as part of the Operation Recover All the Loot, the next NDC government will take key interest in a number of these subjects as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'll take two more. I'll prefer females this time, please. Two more, so we can balance. All right, there's a hand in the back. The lady in white. I want another female. Gentlemen, I'll come back to you during the second batch. Let's balance it a bit.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, former President of the Republic of Ghana, and your amazing vice, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jifa Bekwe Gray, and I am the host of the Mode in Africa show with Jifa Gray. And this edition is the Real Talk edition for the election 2024, to dive into the manifesto, because we believe there's a lot more for the ordinary Ghanaian to learn and understand, so we choose wisely this time around. My question is, Ghana has discovered lithium, and already the government is signing some agreement on the news to find energy resources. Why is it not one thinking of an equity-based agreement where Ghanaians can own 50% of shares and on the companies? And most importantly, Your Excellency, one of my profound questions, which is personal to me, and I believe that ordinary Ghanaian is, I believe that you have gone through a lot watching us go through so much this past 8 years. What do you feel when you go to bed at the end of the night, and what is the profound energy that you have to actually come back into power and show the Ghanaians have always been there and in your mind at all costs?
All right, thank you. Last question. Females, please, unless of course you identify as females. Honorable Sam George says he's here, so you should be careful. Okay, looks like the females are waiting for the next batch of questions, so let's take him, and then I'll come to the rest of you later.
All right, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Derek Emmanuel from IES. I'm glad, I was happy the President spoke about how to increase access to electricity, because at the current rate of 0.8 per year, it means that we're going to achieve universal access to electricity by 2039, growing at 0.8%. I want to ask what the incoming president is going to do regarding the amount of money that Ghana lost regarding the Millennium Compact amount, about 190 million Ghana cedis for the power sector. I want to know what you do to retrieve that amount of money. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So those are 4 questions, and if Your Excellency would permit, I'll just run through them so we are sure that those are the same questions you have. So the first question, they're asking, what are the cogent steps you intend to take to address immediate declines in the oil fields? Second one, is there a credible alternative for gold for oil to stabilize the cedi, and what is it? In relation to the GPGC scandal, they're asking that you involve civil society to help us recover all the loot. Lithium discovery, which was the next question, is why is no one thinking of an equity-based agreement for lithium where Ghanaians can own 50% shares? And the personal question is, what do you feel when you go to bed at the end of the day? And what profound energy do you wake up having? Seeing Ghanaians going through all that we go through under this current government. In relation to the Millennium Pact Agreement, what will you do regarding all of the money that we lost? This is what, if we, please, Your Excellency, the stage is yours. Round of applause, please.
Thank you very much. Yes, your diagnosis is correct. Just as I also said, our upstream needs urgent attention, and if we don't do anything about it, I mean, it's going to collapse. And so we have been engaged in stakeholder consultations, and we know that several of the players in the upstream sector have visions for aggressively exploring, bringing more gas on stream, and completing appraisal of compartments that they have had. They've not been able to go forward with these projects because there have been obstacles in the way towards moving forward. And so immediately it's to resolve all the outstanding disputes. You remember what happened with ENI and Springfield. I believe that it shouldn't have taken this long. If the government had an interest in bringing the two parties to the table, a resolution could have been found to it. We didn't have to wait till international arbitration has forced us now to go back to the negotiating table after so many years of legal dispute. And so, as I did when I met the upstream players, I said oil is in transition, oil is in transition. And we should be pumping our oil reserves like crazy. And if I have to embrace them and kiss them to invest and pump out all that resource we have in the ground, I'll do that. I'll have an open door. They can walk in any day to resolve any obstacles, because we don't want to have stranded assets. I mean, the rate at which all this is moving, if we don't make the best use of the resources we have, we're going to end up having stranded assets that time would have passed us by and nobody will be interested in. Of course, gas has a longer time span to go because gas is still in quite high demand, unlike oil. And so we'll do everything to get them to increase production and see Ghana again as an attractive investment destination for oil and gas investments. And that's why I said for the upstream sector, Ghana is open for business again. You'll have a very favorable hearing and we'll take all the obstacles out of your way in bringing investment into the sector. Gold for oil was introduced, one, to stabilize the price, and then two, to stabilize the forex. It has achieved none of them. The price has gone up, the forex is still tumbling. And the whole agreement is opaque. Even I, as the leader of the opposition, don't know what the underlying agreements and who the participants in the gold for oil deal are. And so, like I said, we're going to investigate it and find out, what is really happening. My understanding is that Bank of Ghana is financing it. Bank of Ghana is posting losses. I hear there are delays, there are backlog in delivery of gold for oil that has already been taken. And it is possible that another liability is looming when the new government comes into office. And so that's an issue that we're going to look at. One of the main drivers of increase in petroleum prices is the unstable macroeconomy and the depreciation in the currency. And the depreciation in the currency has been caused by fiscal indiscipline and overborrowing. We all sat in this country, and from 2018 to 2021, we allowed the finance minister to borrow almost $11 billion. And it was only the parliamentary group of the NDC raising the red flag. Everybody just sat down, and that money has been utilized mostly for consumption. I mean, you don't see much in infrastructure for the value that was borrowed. And so we've ended up where we are, macro instability. Today the city is even a bit not deteriorating as fast as it should, because we're not yet paying servicing any foreign debt. We have a moratorium on foreign debt, but also aside from that, this government has superintended, over the collapse of some of the more reliable foreign exchange earners, like the cocoa industry. It's been mismanaged. Headquarters spending has increased. The cocoa farmers have been giving the smallest amount of the share of the international cocoa price. It's made them lose interest in cocoa farming. And of course, the Galamsey menace and climate change have played a role, but more, than anything, the lack of incentives, the lack of a price incentive for them to continue the cocoa farming has contributed to the current situation in which we are, where nobody wants to take our cocoa bonds anymore, unlike in the past where syndicated banks used to chase to get Ghana's cocoa syndication. Unfortunately, that has ended. And after the cocoa board went fishing for some banks to lend it to buy cocoa and they refused, they came back and said, we're entering a new era of domestic, mobilizing our own resources. We're no longer going to take money from outside. I mean, what is better than getting $2 billion a year at 1.5%, which we were getting with the cocoa syndication? It brings a huge infusion of currency immediately into your system. And unfortunately, that has ended. And so that's one of the things that we also must stop printing currency. One of the major problems we're facing is Bank of Ghana is indiscipline. Bank of Ghana and Government of Ghana is indiscipline in terms of printing billions of cedis. That's what has created the current inflation that we're struggling to bring under control again. It is significant to know that in 2016, we did zero central bank financing. We financed the Government of Ghana budget from our own revenues without one single cedi from the Bank of Ghana. How did we end here? Borrowing more than 72 billion from the Bank of Ghana, and that's currency that was printed and put into the system, with a 60 billion loss of the Bank of Ghana that had been making profit every year until we handed over in 2017. So these are all some of the issues, because everything is interlinked. The petroleum and energy sector does not live in isolation. GPGC is just an unfortunate and unnecessary debt that the people of the government, the people of Ghana have had to endure. And I've seen the technical committee's report, advising against the cancellation of GPGC, and yet government went ahead and cancelled it. And from what we are hearing, the representative of Trafigura, who were the owners of the plant, is a member of the family, and he had an internal dispute with another member of the family before they came into office. And so it was like, we'll show you. And so it had nothing to do with the people of Ghana. We were innocent, sitting out somewhere. And then two family members were fighting and decided to cancel it despite the best advice. And we've been landed with $170 million debt. Today, Regina House that Nkrumah sweated and procured for us, today is under lien from that debt. And so these are all things that we must investigate so they don't happen again. And so when we come into office, somebody must answer for what happened. Despite all the opposition that has been raised in terms of creaming illicit monies from revenue assurance, people are still adamant and want to go ahead to give sweetheart deals to companies that they are hiding behind to pretend to do revenue assurance and cream off money so that even when they are out of government, they can still have a flow of income. We're going to investigate all these revenue assurance schemes and make sure that there are things that are in the interest of the people of Ghana. And so buyer beware. You sign any revenue assurance contract, we will look into it. And if it's not in the interest of the people of Ghana, you can be sure that we will take the appropriate action. With lithium, you say, why don't we go for an equity-based agreement? If you look at the electric vehicles and the whole EV battery thing, there's a lot of research going on. And lithium has been the main battery source of power. But if you look at developments in the sector, if we do not push to get production of lithium going and getting something out of it, time may pass us by. Because new research is showing other sources of power for the batteries for EVs. We have struck an agreement. I think that in such agreements we must always put the clause to be able to acquire more equity. But we must start from somewhere. If we say we're going to stall it because we want a 50-50 agreement, we probably will wake up one morning and lithium is a thing of the past and some new source of battery power has come. Unfortunately, they try to create the impression that it is the fault of the minority in parliament. It isn't. You've gone to agree a lithium agreement that asks for royalties and shares above what the Minerals and Mining Act, prescribes. So first you need to amend the Minerals and Mining Act so that you can, that agreement can qualify under that act. But you can't bring a concession agreement for lithium with share agreements and royalties that exceed what the Parent Minerals and Mining Act prescribes. And yet they're going around and creating an impression that is the minority opposed to it. We're not opposed to it. We say bring the Minerals and Mining Act amendment. Let's amend it. And once we amend it, then we can pass the agreement for the lithium. So the ball is in the government's court. And they should stop creating the impression that the minority in parliament is stalling that lithium agreement. If we start mining that lithium, it will bring jobs to that area. And we know that from the social surveys that have been done, among the 5 poorest regions, Central region is one of them. And so if some activity like that starts, it should help to alleviate some of the poverty in that particular region and provide jobs for people. And so government should bring the amendment to the minerals and mining law as quickly as possible, and let Parliament pass the lithium agreement and let some mining start. But let's make sure there's a clause that if it becomes highly profitable, we can ask for additional equity, or we can float some shares in the venture on the Ghana Stock Exchange. That's one of the programs that I went to, and I said one of the first things I'll do when I become president is to go and kneel before the Millennium Challenge Compact and beg them and say, the 190 million, I beg them, we need it. It was the last component. We had invested in transmission, in all the value chain. It was a 570 million compact, and we had invested properly all that money, and it was just down to the last part of it, which is to deal with the sick man of the power fraternity, ECG, just there. And that was to bring in private sector participation in ECG in order to improve on collections and reduce commercial losses. And then the family started quarreling with the front men over the shares. And the quarrel became so serious that, with fraudulent insurance bonds and all that kind of thing. And the quarrel became so serious that, it got stalled, and the Millennium Challenge Compact had to pull back the 190 million. I met with the American ambassador yesterday. We were discussing other issues aside from to do with international and domestic issues, especially with regards to our ongoing tussle with the Electoral Commission. And during the discussion, I appealed to her again that if God favors us and the people of Ghana, also favor us and vote for us, one of the first things I'll do when I swear in as president is come to her office and ask her to arrange a mission for me to go to America to beg them that we need that 190 million to come and resolve the downstream distribution sector, because we need that. We need to improve efficiency of collection and also work to reduce the technical losses as much as possible. Until we do that and stabilize the economy in order that the currency is stable, until we do that, we'll continue to have volatilities in the whole energy sector. And so I think those are 4 questions. I think I'll just stand here rather than go up and down. MC.
Very much, Your Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Before I go ahead to take the next 4 questions, I'd like to quickly acknowledge the presence of some former power and energy ministers that are here with us this evening. The Honorable Kwame Pepra was the former Minister for Energy and also Finance Minister. Honorable, please, let's see you. Thank you. We also have Dr. Otingeje, former Minister for Energy, also here with us as well. We have Honorable Emmanuel Ama Bua, also former Minister for Energy. Dr. Kwabna Donko, former Minister for Power. Thank you very much. We have the Honorable Seth Tekpe, who also acted as Minister for Power sometime. It's a proper economic wastegate. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have some former CEOs of energy sector state-owned enterprises, and of course the minority leader Dr. Atto Forsen is also here with us, as well as some members of parliament. We shall now take the next 4. Charlie, the way you raise your hand quick. Let me come to you because you raised your hand earlier. I'll come to you, but let's start with him.
Evening, Frank Kwashi is my name. I'm a research scientist with the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission. His Excellency, you made mention that your 24-hour economy will be hinged on energy. But in your speech and the nice presentation by Honorable John Jinapo, I didn't see anything about alternative energies like solar, solar, waste to energy, because currently we generate about 13,000 tons of waste, solid waste in a day in Ghana, and also about the nuclear power program, because currently we are in the phase 2, initial phase 2 of that program. So I want to know your plans on those. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, let me balance it a bit. I'll take a lady. Thank you. Yes. And then I'll come to you. I'll take a lady. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Nafi Chinri, and I think that my question follows what the gentleman said. We currently have an energy transition plan. The current government has developed an energy transition plan. And in your presentation, you mentioned developing an energy transition policy or energy transition plan. I'd like to know what your plan would look like and whether it will be different from what we currently have in the country. Are you going to invest in developing a new plan for the country, and what would that look like? And I think it follows to what the gentleman talked about.
All right, thank you. We'll take two more. I said I promised I'd come to you, so I'll take you. And then I'd come to you last.
Right. Steve Mantiel is the name. I co-chair the Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, and I convene the civil society platform on oil and gas. Your Excellency, I heard you on energy transition and renewables. But the data shows that we are unable to attract adequate investments into renewable energy technology. In my view, God is a Ghanaian, because he gave this country all we need to make that transition without much effort. A study by the Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative shows or identifies 5 to 6 critical minerals that Ghana needs to make the transition. Lithium is one of them, but also is silica, and we have them in abundance. Unfortunately, we cited our Atuabo gas processing facility on our prime silica deposit site. But it's a whole silica belt that runs from Atuabo all the way to Aboso. And as far back as 1960, Kwame Nkrumah saw wisdom in building the Aboso glass factory. Today, the way we build has changed. Everybody is using glass. Your Excellency, if we were minded to revamp the Aboso glass factory and to retool it to turn our silica into glass, it will help our construction industry and reduce our import of glass. But more importantly for energy transition is that when you coat the surfaces of the glass with photovoltaic materials, they become solar panels. So all the high-rise buildings with the glass around them become generators, generating power for internal use. I'd like to know what will be your plan or strategy to attract investments into the exploitation of the critical minerals that we need to help us transition from fossil fuel dependent economy to renewable energy. Thank you.
Wow. So I'll come to you. This one is a university thesis question.
It's my turn. Okay. Excellency, thank you. I have seen everybody that I know in the energy space here. Duncan Amwa is my name, Chamber Petroleum Consumers. I've seen everybody I know within the space. And your presentation from the consultation that the Energy Committee and your good self have done over the period, everything that we suggested, we found that in your presentation and manifesto. And so we are confident that it is not a manifesto coming out of people's wishy-washy agenda, but this is what exactly the industry, both watchers and actors here have all said. Your Excellency, I have two quick things. I don't have the luxury of a question because, like I indicated, we have engaged extensively. Your Excellency, 24-hour economy clearly will pose some good tiding for the energy sector. If you have a fuel station that closes at 6 p.m. or latest 10 p.m., as in most cases, and Your Excellency decides to provide just basic security or protection for the fuel stations, it is our estimation as a chamber that these fuel stations will be able to add at least 30% of their revenue if they are able to run beyond the normal closing hours, because, of course, as they open, more and more people closing from work and others also moving in the night will be able to access fuel. One of the critical things that you would need to do is to ensure automation of the pumps, particularly the fuel pumps. And so we would want to plead that that should find expression in your policy rollout. The very last thing is the most topical situation in Ghana now, which is Galamsey. Your Excellency, you have the Chief Executive of the Association Oil Marketing Companies here. In fact, he represents all OMCs, Dr. Rivers and Opong. Just a while ago, we were having a banter that said, to stop Galamsey, the energy sector would also have a critical role to play. If they were to stop selling fuel or sending fuel to the Galamsey sites, the people in the bushes mining, the Shamfans and their motors and engines would all stop. So, Your Excellency, we are pushing them. I'm sure as they like to listen to you, if you could also push them from this particular forum, maybe we'll stop selling fuel to the Galamseyers in the bushes, and then the Shamfans will remain there. We'll find a solution. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for the opportunity. Yeah, okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very interesting questions. We captured everything under renewable energy, and we said that we will work to expand investment in that sector in order that we can meet the 10% non-hydro renewable mix. We know that probably the most viable is solar, because God blessed us with a lot of sunlight. Indeed, if we could export excess sunlight, Ghana will not be in the situation in which it is. And so we must use as much of it as we can. And that's why we talked about rooftop solar and off-grid solar and all the other renewables. We're not a very windy part of the world, and so wind is not too viable an option. There are a few corridors that have been, identified for wind. Waste to energy, you need to think about the technology, and there's a lot that goes into it. Already we can do household biogas plants if we move from the current septic tanks that we use that have to be evacuated from time to time, and we put bio waste feeding. I saw a sample of it in Central University, where the methane gas is fed back into their kitchen to supply gas so that they don't have to buy LPG. So there are all kinds of things that we can do in our own innovative ways. There was an attempt to do a biofuel, a biomass fuel plant, and I mean there are several. For instance, if you go to several countries, they process the sugar cane into sugar, and then the mass that is left, that is the leftover, they use to fuel the factory, and they sell the excess power into the grid. So there are many things that we can do, but we need to look at the economics of it and how to bring in the investment. For now, I think that solar is the most viable. We're looking at nuclear, and I've been following the developments in the sector. I know the stages that they have gotten to. They have done some shortlisting and identified the technology from 2 countries, I think, 2 or 3 countries. And they are looking at mini nuclear to add to the mix that we have. We're following it closely, and we're going to encourage that we look at that so that we can, add that to our generation mix. We need to look at all kinds of, inputs from the power sources so that we can have a more efficient, power sector rather than relying on only one. Gas is finite. A time will come when we have exhausted all our gas potential, and we'll need to look for other potential. So we should encourage as much of a mix as possible so that we're not reliant on only one power source. But we'll continue that work you guys are doing at GAEC. We had a meeting with Atomic Energy, and they briefed us on the work that is going on there with regards to adding nuclear as one of our sources of energy. And so it's something that will continue when we come into office. One of the things that has held countries back is throwing away plans of previous governments and introducing completely new ones. I think that the challenges in the energy sector are known to all of us, and so we're not going to come and jettison any energy transition plan that this government has put in place. We might tweak it based on our manifesto, and that's why we're talking to you about our manifesto. And when we do that, it will be done in consultation with all stakeholders. I'm sure some stakeholder consultation has gone into the current energy plan, and we'll maintain it, but we'll tweak it in consultation with our stakeholders and what our energy priorities are. I don't know if I'm older than Steve or he's older than me, but my brother Steve, thank you for everything that you've done, for Ghana in the energy space, from the Public Interest Accountability Committee and all that, PIAC and all that. Yeah, and I follow your writings with interest, keen interest. And so thanks for the comments you made. Indeed, it was part of our plan when we designed a trouble gas processing plant to tee off a pipeline to Pristia, if you remember. And that was part of the plan because of the Abaso gas factory, that we could send gas to exploit the silica reserves there. But from there, the intention was to take it to the middle of the country and put, thermal plants in the middle of the country to hold up our whole energy transmission, because all our assets were on the coastline. And you know that when you transport over long distances, you lose, the technical losses are more. But if you have another plant, and that's why Bui and the current Ameri plant in Kumasi are important, because then they make the power transmission system of Ghana more resilient than it was before with all our assets on the coastline. So now is the time, now that gas has reached Pristia and reached Kumasi. Unfortunately, our gas supply is not enough to generate power, and so it's only when we have sufficient gas that we can look at other, products like glass and even fertilizer. If we have more gas, we can put in petrochemical plants producing fertilizer and all others. So right now, like I said, we need to encourage the upstream industries. and encourage them to bring as much gas on as possible, so that we can not only get 100% of our power needs, so that we don't have to buy HFO and light crude oil, but we fire all our thermal plants on gas. And then any extra gas that is available, we can look at other byproducts, such as the Aboso glass factory, such as producing, and that's why we said, increasing local production of solar panels and accessories. And so that covers, producing the solar panels and accessories locally, so that we have an industry that makes it more feasible to provide employment, and also to provide those products at a cheaper cost than when we import them from outside. We did a lot of stakeholder consultation with regards to the manifesto, and like my brother was saying, we consulted the downstream, upstream, and all the stakeholders, and we listened to you carefully, and we incorporated a lot of the very intelligent opinions that we captured from those consultations in the manifesto. But one of the things I said in all those consultations is that this will be a continuous process, and that I want that when we come into government, together we will do that journey. And so as we implement policy, we will not stop meeting, we'll continue to meet and see how policy is influencing and affecting the sector, so that if we need to tweak it at any time, we'll continue to do so. So this was not a one-off process, it's going to be a continuous process even after we come into government. We need to move to a cashless society, and that would help the 24-hour economy, because armed robbers attack fuel stations because they are taking a lot of cash from those who come to buy the fuel. So the armed robbers know that the petrol sales are there, and so they will come and attack you to take the petrol sales. And sometimes after they've killed you, they'll take 2,000 Ghana cedis away or 3,000 Ghana cedis away. I mean, what's the cost of the life of a person? But because of e-levy and all that, it has reduced the Momo to Momo transactions. And so if fuel stations had their Momo number, and they say, look, in the night, if you pay Momo, you can come and buy fuel at any time, the armed robbers will know that there's no money there. They'll stop attacking the fuel stations. As long as they know there's cash and they're collecting cash, then it makes it difficult for them to run the 24-hour. But if he says, look, after 10 o'clock, we'll still sell fuel, but we're not accepting any cash. And armed robbers, there's no cash here. We're accepting only Momo payments. And so if that happens and we move to a cashless society, it will help the 24-hour economy. Unfortunately, it's not only for fuel stations, but many other businesses. If we were paying with Momo and other cards and other things, it will reduce the rate of armed robberies because of the large cash holdings that we hold on our premises, because we are taking cash as payment for the services that we provide. That's why we have an increase in the spate of armed robbery. With Galamsey, I don't know about the OMCs, but I know that the Galamseyers have these huge tanks. There are some white tanks with metal straps, and I see them at the back of Kia trucks, and they go and park at a fuel station and they fill them and they pay, and so I don't know whether you're saying they shouldn't sell to those people because I'm not aware that they deliver, but I know the Galamseyers go and buy anyway. But you see, there's one of the mistakes we're making. There's illegal gold mining, which is Galamsey, and there's small-scale gold mining, which is allowed by law. Small-scale gold mining is allowed by law. Illegal gold mining, Galamsey, is not allowed. That is some people taking and going on some concession, or even if it's not a concession, identifying that there's gold here, and without anybody's permit, they go and start mining and destroying the environment. That exists, and that's illegal. But the point I make is, the Minerals Commission awards the concessions. and they award the concessions to people. Are we holding the people who hold the concessions responsible for what happens on their concessions? If we do that, it will solve the problem of Galamsey. You have the concession. If we come and you're doing mining the wrong way, we'll take the concession from you. And so you're supposed to do the mining this way. And I mean, there are experts in mining, a lot of graduates from University of Mining and Technology who are sitting unemployed today. We'll assign them to every person who has a small-scale gold conception. We'll assign those young experts to you and show you how you should do the mining without, crossing the lines. And if we do that in one stroke and we hold them responsible, we say if we come and something is not going well in your concession, we'll hold you responsible. And if they are not being held responsible, then it means that the people who are supposed to implement are complicit, and that's what's happening. Those who are supposed to check are the ones taking money from the illegal activity and turning a blind eye, and the point even is that, and I gave a warning, I said, look, if you want to be a gold miner in the gold industry, then don't serve in my government as a DC or as a minister or anything. The reason why it is difficult to deal with Galamsey is because members of this government, from DCs to MPs to ministers, are involved in small-scale gold mining. That's why it's difficult to deal with it. I have no small-scale gold concession. I don't have any relatives involved in small-scale mining. I don't expect my ministers to be engaged in small-scale mining. My DCs should not be involved. If I find that you are involved, I'll remove you. Go and mine. If you want to mine, go and mine. If you want to serve the people, serve the people. But one of the things we say is that we should move the implementing agencies and enforcing agencies closer to where the mining is taking place. And so I think this government has started doing so. I've seen some Minerals Commission offices being opened in the mining districts. We should accelerate that and employ more people for those agencies, EPA and all of them, and make sure that they are posted to that district. We must identify the boundaries of that district, how many concessions are in those districts. You should be able to go to the EPA, have a control room that shows what is happening in every mining sector. And today with satellite technology and all that, you can be able to see what is going on within your district. And if all that is linked to the main headquarters, have a big control room, you know what is happening in Prestia, you know what is happening in Takwa, you know what is happening in every mining district. You get reports every day coming about what is happening. Then we'll get a better control of mining. The only sector still holding this country is the gold industry. Oil and gas is down, cocoa is down. Those were the main pillars. Gold is up. At the last, I had 135 tons per year. A lot of it is coming from illegal sources. And so if we are going to clamp down, then it means that the export volume is going to go down. And so it's an opportunity course we have to take. We must weigh the balance of the destruction of the environment against current economic crisis and the effect any reduction in gold exports is going to have. And I do think that we need to make a choice as a people. I believe that, some of those forest reserves are more important than the little gold that we take from under them. And so stopping mining in forest reserves will be one of the things that we look at immediately we come in. And then also the alluvial gold. There are countries where they have huge resources of gold in rivers, but they've decided not to mine the rivers because they want to keep the rivers as a natural resource and as a resource that they hand over from generation to generation. And so we need to make that choice as a people. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Your Excellency. So we're supposed to close at 9:30. It's 9:33. And so we'll take just two more. So
30.
Exactly.
Our money runs out at 9:30.
So I'll take you, and then the gentleman in suit seated in front. Yes, just two.
His Excellency, I don't know why COPEC will bring us into. So my name is Rivers Nopon, the CEO of oil marketing companies. We're not part of Galamsey. So let me issue this disclaimer before COPEC can allow. Yeah, so I think one of the main reasons why you see our members supplying to these illegal miners, I don't know if you are privy to the number of oil marketing companies we have today. We are more than 170. Can you imagine Ghana today? And I said this with all due respect in Kenya when I met my sister company for the East Africa Downstream Dialogue. When I mentioned that we had 175 oil marketing and LPG marketing companies in Ghana, they were shocked. Even Nigeria, with the land size, doesn't have that amount of oil marketing companies. The competition is huge. So my members have no other means than to sell to the Galamsey people if they have to survive. That has also resulted to quite a number of disparate companies in the downstream sector. Example of them is the debt to the stakeholders like BOST, NP and GRA, which I believe it's been on the news for the past weeks. I don't know. To a question, what are you going to do about this when it comes to power? The number is escalating, and I believe there should be a point where we need to stop issuing licenses to people to run oil marketing companies. Another issue has to do with cross-zonalization. I'm very happy that you mentioned that BOST, or now called BEST, will now be realigned to do what it needs to do. My members are forced to now pick products from Tema to Takrady and in the interlands. And sometimes they will go with an empty BRV to load in Takrady, and they'll be told to come back to Tema to load. And that's bringing another lot of cost to my members. If the cross-zonalization is not going to work, let's be a clear policy that you can now live from anywhere across the country, because the competition will fight for itself. And then if there's no need for BOST, there's no need for BOST. Thank you.
Yes, the gentleman in suit, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Paulo Foy, Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC. Your Excellency, in the lead up to the 2016 elections, one of the topical issues was fuel, or the price of fuel. You recall that a liter of fuel at the time was 4 cedis per liter. Today, as we speak, we all know, it's obvious, 16 cedis, 14 cedis per liter. Now, the transporter out there, the ordinary consumer, is looking up to you. In your first 100 days, Your Excellency, what are you going to do to relieve the ordinary consumer of the suffering they are going through, the transporter out there? Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. So that'll be it. Just 2 questions. Thank you. Just 2 questions, and then Your Excellency would take them. And if I got the questions right, he's asking about what Your Excellency would do about the prices of fuel within his first 100 days when he gets into office. The questions from the other end. Okay, I think Your Excellency is ready. Your Excellency, may I? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so, well, I thought I defended you with the Galamsey. I said, they come to buy, you don't deliver. But like I said, we must look at the whole issue of Galamsey, and we must engage the stakeholders, because we must also consider employment. With the crisis in the country, a lot of young people find sustenance in gold mining. And so it needs to be handled gingerly, you know, and it probably should be a process rather than, I see the president is asked, I don't know if it's true, but it's asked the president, the military to go out there again. I think we must think through it properly and make sure that while we are concerned about the environment, we must make a transition towards finding alternative livelihoods for the young people. And I think that in afforestation, revamping the forest, growing trees and so on and so forth, there's a lot of money in green funds sitting outside that we can tap into to employ these same young people who are in Galamsey and provide them with jobs in growing trees. I've seen the example in Ethiopia. Ethiopia has planted more than 2 billion trees. And I mean, when you go, you see the difference in the climate. I'm the chairman of the Tana Forum. The last time I went to Bahirda, it used to be a dry, hot place. The last time I went there, the weather had changed. It was cooler, it was shadier, and so we can do something like that here. And like I said, also with alluvial mining, we need to look at, the cost opportunities and all that. We want cleaner rivers, but let's see how we stop it. Some of it is that they pump the water to the land, they wash the gold and pump the water back into the river. There are new technologies that we can introduce to them to stop them from polluting the water. They just need to do a leach dam and then wash all the gold they want into the leach dam. And there are now agents for cleaning the water. So you put the agents into the water, it cleans the water, takes all the toxins and the parasites out, and then you can pump the clean water back into the river. And so there's technology for everything. I mean, mining has been done everywhere in the world. We can learn from the best practices and still be able to give our people a livelihood. 170 OMCs and more are created anytime a new government comes into power. Because it's a thing with Ghana, everybody follows everybody. I remember there were very few BDCs. Then BDC became the fashion. And everybody wanted a BDC license. OMC is the fashion. Everybody wants an OMC license. Despite opens a radio station, everybody wants an FM station license. Somebody opens a pure water factory. Everybody wants to establish a pure water factory. There's a lot more that we can all do. If all of us are OMCs, we reduce the profit in the business, and all of us are getting a smaller share of the same cake. So the more OMCs you have, the smaller the share everybody is getting, until nobody is getting anything. And then we all complain that there's no profit in it. Our margins are too low, and so on and so forth. And so I don't think we should stop entering into it, but we should apply the standards. I mean, if you're an OMC, you're supposed to have a certain number of stations to qualify as an OMC. You can't have fly-by-night OMCs, have a few stations, 2-3 stations, and then say the person qualifies. You must have a standard for keeping your license as an OMC. And you should be inspected annually to make sure that you qualify to be an OMC. And if you don't, then maybe your license is taken away from you. I don't know. But like I said, all these things we will do with stakeholders. I don't want to be accused by OMCs and that they want, I say when I come, we're going to take their licenses. So don't lead me into temptation. I beg you. But we're going to sit with you and see how we can clean up that whole space of OMCs and BDCs to make sure that if you get it, you are living up to the expectation that the industry needs you to live up to. Zonalization is some animal that you guys have always complained about. I'm not an expert, but I think that we need some more efficiency in the whole distribution network. Not only zonalization, the UPPF and all that, we need to look at it and see how we streamline it so that if we move fuel more efficiently, it would help us to bring down the cost. And we need to look at the whole cost build-up and see what is in there, who is getting what. There are some people hiding in some corner and making some, things that really, if we didn't allow them to be taken, it will help to bring the cost down. But ultimately, to maintain stable fuel prices, we need to stabilize the currency. The currency is the major driver of the price escalation. And so the finance minister is key in taking the steps that would help to stabilize the currency so that it would help to bring more stable prices to all of us. It says, what will I do to, I think I've virtually answered the rationalize the price of fuel. I think that if we stabilize the currency, we'll stabilize the price of fuel. And then if we look at what leads to the price build-up, we can help to bring things down, bring a lot more efficiency into the downstream petroleum sector. And if we do that, we pass on the savings to the consumer. I think that that is what would help to galvanize the industry. Thank you very much. Okay, I said this is the MC's allowance. He gets
All right, thank you very much, Your Excellency, for such an amazing, please, presentation. In fact, any other person I would greet this evening, I would give you this one or a knuckle. So I won't watch this one for the next week. I wish I could give you all an opportunity to ask a question, but unfortunately, we are bound by time. Please pardon us. Next time we'll do better. Thank you so much for your time. And on behalf of His Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say a very big thank you to Professor J. Nano Pokuagyemang for joining us this evening. Please, let's give a round of applause. Incoming first female Vice President of the Republic of Ghana. I'd also like to say a big thank you to the leadership of the great NDC party, members of parliament that we have here in present, former appointees, the Energy Subcommittee of the NDC Manifesto Committee, and to all of you for making it a point to be here tonight. Our friends from the media, we appreciate you for your coverage. And for those of you who are watching us from home, we do appreciate your company as well. Thank you all and do have a good night. Exiting would be through the back. And once again, my name is and will remain Ewura Adams Karim. Have a good night.